Great. So tonight's presentation is from CivicTechYYC, Tech for Good and Civic Innovation with Geoff Zakaib. Is that how I do that? Oh, Geoff, you were muted a little bit there.
All right. Yeah, Geoff Zakaib.
Geoff Zakaib, thank you. So Geoff's going to tell us a little bit about the founding of Civic Tech Calgary, highlight a few projects, and you can learn more at their website or at the meetup. So without further ado, I'll stop my screen share and invite Geoff to share the presentation.
All right, hopefully that's the full screen. Yep, great.
Yep, looks great.
Well, thanks so much for the invitation to come out virtually to Toronto. I actually grew up in Oakville, so it's a bit of old home day here, and I have been to Civic Tech Toronto back in a couple years ago in person when you guys were having in-person events, and those were great, and also virtually. So this is one benefit of the pandemic, is having all these meetups across the country, having virtual events and being able to share and visit with each other in that kind of way. So really happy to give you a bit of background around Civic Tech Calgary this evening, and I'll start kind of fairly broadly and with the sort of the broader movements around technology for good and civic innovation, and then kind of drill down into Civic Tech Calgary and some of our projects. So really what we're seeing, this broader category, tech for good, is really that. It's really happening around the world. And this is a chart put out by Tech for Good Global a few years back, which talks about the ecosystem of technology for good, whether it's digital social innovation or open data, or digital citizen science, or community tech, or gov tech, or civic tech. This is all shades of gray, right? And really we're all trying to move together and to use technology broadly for good. So I like your guys' definition of civic tech. We kind of put our own flavor on it a little bit. So, very briefly, civic tech is that movement in which citizens and governments are working together to use technology, data, and design for public good. And in our cities and communities, we do have the opportunity to promote civic tech and use civic tech, to grow public engagement, enhance services, solve problems, but in a way that are more inclusive and responsive, innovative, open, and citizen-centered. So, to us, this is really the heart of civic tech. And global movement, and many of you here, of course, know this very well. But going back 10 or 15 years, and a very cool organization, Code for All, right, which brings together the civic tech-related organizations from around the world. So I urge you to visit the website. So in this presentation deck, there's a whole bunch of hyperlinks, and some of the pictures have links as well. So please download the deck, which has been made available, and afterwards click through it for some of these links. But Code for All is great. The US has been doing this for a long time, in cities like Chicago and Boston and New York. Code for America, probably the first, or certainly one of the first. I think they started in about 2009 or so, with sort of civic tech, gov tech, putting technologists into government organizations to really help leverage technology for good and developing digital services. The US has a formal digital services organization, as well as something called 18F. And it's kind of a leading edge group that brings in sort of Silicon Valley type of technologists and technology into government, really kind of leading edge stuff, which is just great. And of course, we're doing it in Canada as well. So many communities and cities across Canada are working on this now. Code for Canada is serving a really fantastic role as helping to facilitate the civic tech organizations across Canada. If you go to the Code for Canada website, and there's a community page where you can actually see a lot of the cities that are doing this, and click on those links. And we're actually also coming together as civic tech organizations. Every month or so, we'll have a call with civic tech leaders from across the country, just talking about what's going on in our communities and trying to leverage projects and learn from each other. It's really kind of neat. And we also have a Canadian Digital Services working within the government to leverage technology. So this is one way that we kind of like to think about civic tech and how these pieces are brought together. Really as an innovation space. Where people working across sectors can come together to build community and to solve problems. So whether it's folks from the community, citizens in the community with civil society and issues there with community challenges, whether it's governments in cities or provinces, federal governments coming together in the public sector, working on services. So it's that collision in the middle there, right? Where whether it's one side or the other, or usually somewhere in between, and projects, across the full spectrum. It's so exciting and in this innovation space. And really, civic tech at its heart is really, open and responsive, and we should strive to, foster civic tech that helps our cities be, more inclusive and collaborative and transparent. If there's one principle we really need to adhere to is that principle of build with, not for. And the link there's just a great article that kind of really goes to the heart of this discussion. And there's over the years, there's been many discussions about this, but it's really important when we're working on our projects and that we really talk about and work with the full spectrum of society and try as to be inclusive of the underrepresented what we're doing. Digital outreach playbook, which has a lot of tips and tricks as we go through this. And really, it's really people is at the heart of this, right? So we really have to be, avoid that kind of, technology is the solution. It's not, right? So we need to be kind of less on the technology digital side and more human in the work that we're doing. And civic tech at its best can address a number of these areas and challenges. So what does it mean for Indigenous communities? So we need to look for opportunities to engage, right, with Indigenous communities and with initiatives that are responsive and that we adjust. There's a great article there, Decolonizing Civic Tech, that we should all read and we should learn from in terms of how some approaches we should be taking to inclusion around that. Indigenous communities are really, trying to leverage technology and being proactive and in developing digital literacy and technical skills. The First Nations Technology Council is one example of a group that's trying to lead the advancement of digital technologies for Indigenous peoples. And there's tons of organizations as well, right? Some of them small and some of them not so small within Indigenous communities working in this area. Play-Doh Testing is a great group. It's a network of Indigenous software testers that really has changed lives through education and employment. So they started, I think, in Fredericton with PQA testing, and they have spread across the country. We actually had them come in to our Calgary meetup and describe the great things that they're doing, bringing in Indigenous people with training and facilitation over a multi-week, multi-month training environment. And then they get placed with companies and organizations that need testing done. And it's just fabulous. And it's been so successful across Canada, as one example. What does this mean for accessibility? So we can do more with accessibility. Those that have disabilities or other disadvantages, to bring in folks with broad backgrounds into our projects. The article Civic Tech for Civic Voice, that primer is very helpful and something we should be thinking through. And Smart Cities for All have developed a toolkit that can help us in this particular area. Sustainability, the issues of social, environmental, and economic issues, which are top of mind. The Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, which we all know about or should know about, should be something we're working towards. And there's some really great resources around, smart city, sustainable development, localizing the SDGs, leveraging technology for the SDGs. So that's happening around the world, right? Civic Tech is happening around Canada as well. So over the years, we've used the Canadian Open Data Summit as a way of bringing folks together from across the country. And of course, Toronto, Civic Tech Toronto is probably the first and most mature group around Civic Tech in the country. But others have been around for quite a while as well, whether it's Ottawa or Beta City YEG, that's in Edmonton. The picture there is from the 2017 CODS, Canadian Open Data Summit, where we brought together folks from across the country. We actually had a fellow from Taiwan as well. So that kind of launched a lot of these discussions, and Code for Canada has really picked up that discussion and helped to facilitate those conversations on a go-forward basis. So in Calgary, we launched CivicTechYYC in 2017, bringing together people who had an interest in improving the community through technology. We leveraged the support of the City of Calgary. The City of Calgary has a civic innovation YYC initiative within the city. There's actually a physical innovation lab that they bring in community partners, but as well facilitate conversations within the city to use technology and to engage with the community. It's really cool, and it's really been a great initiative. But we also leveraged something called the Alberta or Rainforest Alberta. Some of you might have heard about the Rainforest book, which was talking about the ecosystem developed in Silicon Valley. If you haven't read it, it's a really good read about how really that ecosystem works and what some of the pivotal components are around that, you know, including culture and trust and that sort of thing. Anyways, a few years back, a few folks got this Rainforest Alberta group going, which is trying to develop the tech ecosystem in Calgary. And now there's thousands of people that we get together, not the thousands, but things like a lunch without lunch that every Wednesday people in the ecosystem get together. We've done a number of community consultations over the years. So we have the support of the Rainforest as well in launching Civic Tech. Really, the driving force was to, you know, building the community to knock down the barriers between the silos, you know, that are traditionally there, and create that innovation space, right, for collaboration to address challenges and opportunities. So this is one way that we kind of, you know, picture a civic tech community being the connector, you know, between traditionally these kind of areas across the ecosystem. So, you know, whether it's citizens and communities, social innovation and civil society folks working on their challenges and issues, bringing in the government, the City of Calgary, the open data, open government initiatives, civic innovation initiatives, connecting to entrepreneurs and the startup community, the universities and colleges around research and some of the great things that are being done from a technology development point of view, and helping to mobilize that research and knowledge. The private sector, and so the technology industries and alliances that are out there, the whole smart city development, and the many players that are part of that. So that's our goal, that's our vision. Of course, it's an ongoing piece of work, and really we're doing the best we can to make those connections. So I mentioned we launched in 2017. We're 800 members and growing now. Meet on the second Tuesday of the month. You can find us on Meetup and look at some of our past events. May give you some ideas of some of the kind of things you could be talking about in Toronto as well. We'd love to have you join. And now that we're doing it virtually, please sign up to our group and join us. Our website, CivicTechYYC.ca, and of course we're on Twitter at CivicTechYYC. So the way we're kind of organized, we do have these monthly meetups, which are great, and we usually have a speaker that will come in and talk to us. We'll have this time for networking similar to what you've had. And we work on the basis of projects, right? And so we have each of the first couple of years, we had a Civic Tech hackathon. And so, and sort of during sort of Open Data Day, so that time when Open Data Day was, we would organize our Civic Hackathon and labeled it Code Across, right? Sort of leveraging what was happening in Toronto and other places across Canada with that kind of focus on that day and that event. And our Civic Tech hackathons were quite successful, 100 odd people coming out, really to share ideas around projects and then to get people to coalesce around some of those projects and then work on them over the course of the year and use our meetups as time to work on those projects. But we always, at each of our meetups, invite people to come with an idea and launch a new project going forward. So what I'd like to do now is just to review some of the projects that we've been working on. And we'll certainly answer questions and stuff later as we get towards the end of the presentation. So one of our first projects was something that's now called Volley. And so Volley is an amazing way to volunteer in Calgary. So this started at one of our Civic Tech hackathons. Alice Lamb, amazing community member, had no tech knowledge at all, no tech skills at all, but she had just a great idea. She wanted to help young people and others really discover volunteer opportunities and to make it much easier to find them and to sign up for them. So it's kind of like like a Tinder for volunteering, right? Like, how can I find out about these things, and how can I see if it fits, and how can I get hooked up to these opportunities? So Alice was very persuasive, gave her a pitch, and probably 7 or 8 folks coalesced around that idea at the hackathon. Really, even at that first event, built a bit of a prototype, but really came together as a team. And over the course of the next year, on Saturdays and evenings over pizza and beer, and developed an amazing app, which is now you can see at volleyapp.com. And it's been very successful in connecting thousands of individuals across Canada. This has been developed in an open source way, right? So we're more than happy to share the source code, invite others to come in, work on it, improve it, and use it in your community. One other thing that was launched early is our so-called blockchain projects for social good. So these are experiments that we're using with blockchain, but not in in the traditional cryptocurrency type of way that we think about it. But how can we use blockchain for social good for society? And on our website, under the projects tab, there's some information here that you can find out about the experiments that have been run. I think we're on experiment number 4 or so now. And what are those about, and how can we use them? Just some examples, right? Like we folks working on this project really felt, for example, that something like people's volunteering activity, was you would volunteer, and then it would just the fact that you did that just kind of disappeared, right? So, and maybe you would want to put it on your resume later on, or just you wanted to try to make it a bit more permanent, right? So this was one of the ideas. Like, couldn't we take people's volunteering and put that on a blockchain to try to make it a way to make it permanent? It could be searchable, and it would kind of last forever and wouldn't go away. So some work was done around those volunteer opportunities, and various other things as well. We started to get into we have something in Calgary called Calgary Dollars, which are issued and then could be redeemed within businesses to try to support local businesses with activity. So we've also started to work on, could we hook up with a bit of motivation for volunteering and the awarding of Calgary Dollars, and do some recording of that and distribution of that through the blockchain. So if you're into that, it's some really neat ideas going on there. A more recent project we've been working on is improving urban planning through wearable technology. So this was actually launched as well, kind of or the genesis was at one of our hackathons. We had somebody from the City of Calgary who was in kind of the urban planning department at the City of Calgary, and was really kind of interested in wearable technology and the data that could be derived from wearable technology, and wanted to kind of launch a project around that. And so there was some great discussion about that. But one of the ideas that came up, and somebody at that hackathon was aware of the work that was being done at the University of Calgary. And believe it or not, there's actually a wearable technology program at the University of Calgary. So we were able to hook up the City of Calgary around the civic planning department with the researchers through the wearable technology program with Civic Tech. So the three of us kind of got together and launched a project that actually got some funding through the City of Calgary and through some external sources, and are now working on this in a real way. And so you say, well, what can you do with wearable technology in the city? Well, here's some examples, right? So understanding heart rate and stress levels when you're driving or cycling or commuting to work. Determining how the layout and connectivity of the street networks, right, are related to design, using that data by urban planners and developers, right? Collecting data on green space utilization in order to promote physical activity for healthier communities. So all this is happening right now through kind of this citizen science type of project. So we put a call out for volunteers to submit their their data from wearable technology in a secure, private way. So all that's being coalesced within a data repository, and then that data will be used by the research to help answer some of those questions. And then the last initiative I want to cover off is, so as well, in one of the hackathons, it was suggested or pitched that we create a civic user testing group in Calgary. So some of you might be aware of civic user testing. It started in Chicago and has grown across many cities in North America, Baltimore and Oakland and Cleveland and various others, as well in Toronto. So there's a GRIT group gathering residents to improve technology that's been facilitated by Code for Canada and the Civic Innovation folks in Toronto. So it's an amazing group. So amazing that we wanted to do this in Calgary. So we've been thinking about this for a while, but as a bunch of volunteers weren't making a whole bunch of progress. So this year we actually are collaborating with the social innovation program run through the Bissett School of Business at Mount Royal University. And so this course, this civic innovation course this year, the students are going to be helping us to research and develop a plan and make a case for a civic user testing group in Calgary. So they're answering these questions. How, broadly speaking, around tech for good, how might we leverage digital social innovation and tech for good in Calgary broadly? And then more specifically, how might we support this project of CivicTechYYC to launch a civic testing group in Calgary? So this course started in January. It'll be we'll be having our showcase in April, and it's been really exciting. We've been an amazing number of speakers, and the students are doing some great work. So we'll put out the showcase as part of CivicTechYYC meetup as well. So if you're interested, please join us then. So that's all for now. Thanks so much for listening to the presentation, and I hope we can have a really good discussion, answer a bunch of questions, and maybe come up with ways that we can collaborate as well, right? Maybe some of these projects we can really be sharing, whether it's between cities or across civic tech groups across the country. So I'll stop sharing now.
Great, thank you, Geoff. Round of applause for Geoff. I'm going to stop the recording.